Namaste. I, Dr. Uday Thanawala, bring you greetings from ICOG and present you with Diamonds Are Forever. We have conceptualized this series with the idea of bringing you the stories of few stalwarts of our subject, whose work has been original, path-breaking, and recognized all over the world. Via this medium, we introduce you to these famous personalities and get to know them beyond just their work. The effort, the dedication, and the courage which goes behind every innovation. We hope that our gynecologists will find this series interesting and inspiring because these diamonds are bright and lustrous, and the light which they emit can inspire many to bring out the genius in them. Today, we focus on Dr. Vitthal N. Shirodkar, who was decorated by a Padma Bhushan and Padma Vibhushan, and he truly deserves these honors. Dr. V. N. Shirodkar was born in Shiroda, a town in Goa, on the 7th of April 1899. He studied medicine at the Grand Medical College, Mumbai, and qualified as MD in 1923. He was an excellent teacher, meticulous surgeon, who wielded his knife with great precision, which his students and fellow colleagues would crave to watch, even at 4 a.m. in the morning when he generally started his surgery. He spent hours in the laboratory and dissection hall in search of newer techniques in surgery, and this gave him a deep understanding of the anatomy. He was the first to recognize incompetent os as a cause of second trimester abortion and devised the operation of tightening of the os. My co-host for today's program is Dr. Harshad Sanghvi. Harshad is Honorary Fellow of the ICOG and a Senior Medical Advisor at JPICO. He is in Baltimore, Washington, and I thank him immensely for his help and the interest he has taken in this project. Over to you, Harshad.
Dr. Shirodkar's extraordinary legacy is that he helped women overcome infertility and repeated loss of pregnancy, while at the same time leading the movement for modern contraception and abortion rights in India and across the world. Shirodkar amassed a massive amount of clinical experience while working 14 to 16 hours at the JJ Group of Hospitals, at Grant Medical College, and at Vadia Maternity. He is reported to have performed the world's largest numbers of tuboplasties for restoring infertility. Blessed with a critical mind, a voracious appetite for reading, and a healthy disregard for the impossible, in a short span of time, he developed the Shirodkar Extended Manchester Operation and the Shirodkar Sling to deal with uterine prolapse. He crafted a vaginal hood for the cervix as a method for contraception and also fashioned an artificial vagina. His seminal work was a result of his deep studies in the pathology and the physiology of the cervix, and he was the first to describe the concept of the incompetent cervix and its treatment using the Shirodkar Cerclage. In 1955, he reported on 30 patients who had previously had aborted 4 to 11 times, in whom he performed this procedure. All of his cases were successful and went to term. He quickly became a revered teacher and was in great demand in India and abroad to deliver lectures and to treat patients. He published widely and always eager to share his opinions, theories, and innovations. In 1960, he published his experiences in a book, Contributions to Obstetrics and Gynecology, which is a remarkable classic and describes his surgical advances and instruments he invented. He is credited with establishing the Family Planning Association of India and was member of the Shantlal Shah Committee that paved the way for legalizing abortion in India. His fame was spreading widely, and he became a gynecologist to many famous personalities, politicians, movie stars, but was always available to women who were in need of his care. Dr. Shirodkar was in his professional prime during the struggle for independence in India and saw the rebirth of the nation, convinced that the Indian physicians could be healers to the world. For his remarkable contributions, he was awarded the Padma Bhushan in 1960, and then India's highest honor, the Padma Vibhushan in 1971, becoming the second and the last gynecologist ever to receive this highest accolade. And now let's see the film of his procedure.
To obtain autologous fascia lata, the thigh is prepared. A lower incision is made. Section and mobilization of this end of the strip is effected with Alice clamps holding the lower portion of the strip. Then the upper thigh incision is made. Dissection and mobilization of the upper end of the strip is accomplished, and a similar blunt dissection above and below is carried out. The strip of fascia is then removed. It is approximately 10 to 15 centimeters in length, depending on the size of the cervix. The strip is placed in normal saline until needed. A posterior fornix incision is made and mobilization of the tissues started. The anterior fornix incision, dissection, and mobilization of bladder and paracervical tissue at the level of the internal os is accomplished. A slip knot is used to lead the fascia through the paracervical area at the level of the internal os beneath the cervical fascia. The left fascial director is introduced and further blunt dissection carried out. The fascia is attached to this left director and the strip pulled out at the anterior fornix incision. A similar procedure is employed on the right side of the cervix with the right cervical director. The fascia is now encircling the cervix at the level of the internal os.
Dr. Shirodkar was a very famous and sought-after obstetrician. He was Mrs. Indira Gandhi's obstetrician and delivered Mr. Rajiv Gandhi. Because of his skills, he had patients all over the world and has treated many celebrities like Sophia Loren successfully with the Shirodkar stage. Today, I have the pleasure of introducing you who possibly is the first baby born in India after a successful Shirodkar stage, Dr. Manu Sophi. Dr. Manu Sophi is a urologist practicing in Mumbai, and we have him with us on this show with us. Thank you, Manu, for joining us.
Hello, I am Manu Sophi, as Uday has just told you. I am a urologist practicing in Bombay. It is possible that I was one of the earliest babies born after the Shirodkar sling.
So, Manu, please tell us the story around your birth. It will be very interesting to know whatever your mother has told.
Okay. Well, this is all from what I was told by my father and my mother. My father, Dr. Kashinath Sophi, he was a surgeon. And he would often assist Dr. Shirodkar in his surgeries. And my mother, who was a gynecologist too, she went on losing pregnancy after pregnancy. And Dr. Shirodkar in sometime maybe in 1953 or early 54 told my father that I am thinking of this new idea the women who keep on losing their pregnancies, why not, sort of close the gate? And probably this was one of the earliest cases that he did. And my mother would, she showed me a long scar, almost more than a foot long, running along the lateral side of her thigh, from which he had harvested a ribbon of fascia lata. And in the November of 1954, I was born by a cesarean section at Dr. Shirodkar's hands in Kambala Hill Hospital. It's running even today. Unfortunately, I had no personal interaction with him. But Uday tells me I was probably the first to be born like this. Now, as regards Dr. Shirodkar, when I myself joined surgery, and I used to be keen, to find out about the grades. So I used to ask my dad, that you used to assist Dr. Shirodkar, and what was special about him? So one sentence he told me, which I remember almost really ever so often. He said that Dr. Shirodkar, when he would be operating, it would seem that he is operating very slowly. That the surgery would get over in just no time. So his movements were slow, deliberate, but absolutely focused on achieving a certain outcome. And I have tried to keep that in mind when all of us as surgeons are trying to better ourselves. We will continue till the day we stop practice. But this is something that I learned from my dad, and with what he tried to pick up from Dr. Shirodkar, that every movement, every surgical movement must be aimed to achieve a definite outcome. One more thing I do remember my mother telling me, that once he had put the cerclage stitch on her, he would come to our nursing home and pay a visit to her each and every weekend. Every Saturday he would be there to see how his baby literally is doing. That's about it. That's all that I have to say. Thank you, Uday.
Welcome, Renee. Dr. Renee Levy is coming from Boston. She is a management consultant working with both public and private nonprofit institutions in organizational development, leadership development, and change management. She's going to be speaking to us about her grandfather. So welcome, Renee, and tell us about your grandfather.
Well, thank you for inviting me to be part of this program, Harshad. Dr. Shirodkar, I'm proud to say, was my paternal grandfather. I was born Renuka Aviva Shirodkar in his own surgical suites called Belleville in Bombay in March of 1953. My grandfather wanted very much to deliver his first grandchild, and so persuaded my mother to fly the 7,748 miles from New Haven, Connecticut, where my father was studying medicine at Yale, to Bombay in her 8th month of pregnancy. He got his wish, he delivered me, although I'm told he received condolences on my birth. Why? Because after all, I was only a girl. I suppose I managed to redeem myself, however, as he kept a photograph of me on his desk through the years that ensued. My parents were an odd match. My father grew up in India with the expectation that he would follow in his father's footsteps. And my mother, whom he met in Baltimore while attending Johns Hopkins, was a recent immigrant from Germany. She was a Holocaust survivor who had escaped Germany at the age of 14 on the Kindertransport. She lost her parents and her home to the Nazis, and then lived through the war years in London. Eventually, she was sponsored by a relative in Baltimore to come and live there. And so the two of them met actually on a bus stop in the rain, if you can believe that. In me, their two worlds collided, their two cultures intertwined. My early years were spent living with or near my grandparents in Muffet Law Park. I was very young and I don't have many personal memories, but there are many family stories and I've heard them over the years. My grandfather was described as a kindly man, completely dedicated to his work. He wasn't around very much for the family, but my parents and grandparents had a very active social life in early post-colonial India. Of course, he was everyone's gynecologist or obstetrician, and he was becoming famous, so they hobnobbed with the Indian elite, much to my grandmother's delight. My mother's perspective is that this was not, however, what motivated my grandfather. What motivated him, she said, was intellectual curiosity, problem solving, and a dedication to serving all Indian women. I'm told he often offered his services for free to poor women and treated them the same way he treated the rich and famous. I am personally inspired by his humanity and egalitarianism. My parents ultimately returned to the US and divorced. I grew up in America with my mother, a special education teacher, while my father returned to India after completing his Doctor of Science in Virology at Johns Hopkins. He later completed his MD in India, and he dedicated his career to studying oncogenic viruses, cervical cancer in particular. He was director of the Hefkeen Institute of Virology in Bombay for a time, and he published many significant papers. His work continues through the VN Shirodkar Memorial Lecture Series, which annually brings together researchers from all over the world to present their work. My grandfather left a great legacy of accomplishments, as you've heard, but he also left a personal legacy to me. What I gleaned from his life and frankly strive to achieve in my own is to take a problem, think about it in new and different ways, and create and apply solutions that work. In other words, to innovate. And when innovation is applied to serving humanity, it is the most noble of aspirations and a recipe for a life well lived. I just want to read to you the preface of his book, Contributions to Obstetrics and Gynecology, because I think it captures his thinking behind the innovator that he was. Quote, "With due respect to the old masters, I did not reconcile myself to some of the operative procedures that fell far short of the ideal. Ideas came to my mind for improving the time-honored methods. They may or may not have been acceptable to all, but after discussing with several of my friends in Europe, the US, and Canada, I found that there were many who wished to see improvements on the older methods." I think he would be proud to know that his words are being read aloud today to inspire all of your work.
Well, thank you so much, Renee. I think that they are inspiring. And I think this quote really captures Dr. Shirodkar's mindset, his willingness to innovate and to strive for a better care for women. Could you tell me now what you think his larger contribution to India was?
Yes, I think, yes, I think what he showed in the way that he was able to gain respect is that Indians can do it. They can be pioneers in leading the world, not just following it, which at the time was quite revolutionary. In that he began breaking the shackles of India's colonial rulers. He would be proud, I think, to be looking out into the audience today to see how respected and accomplished Indian doctors and other healthcare professionals have become all around the world today.
Thank you so much, Renee. Thank you for sharing a little bit of your father's tremendous personal side. Renee, I think you told me a while ago that Dr. Shirodkar's mother died of cervical cancer, a condition that's fully preventable today. Women in India still continue to die from this disease. We could truly honor this great man and his legacy if we all work together to eliminate cervical cancer. So thank you all very much. I appreciate you being with us. Thank you.
My pleasure.
So friends, we've taken you back in the 1950s and brought to life the legend Dr. Shirodkar was. His dedication and commitment to the subject has put India on the international map. I hope you have enjoyed watching this episode, and soon we'll be coming back with another brilliant diamond.
I'm also very glad to inform you that we've launched our own ICOG YouTube channel now. So please do subscribe to it and like it. We are going to put up this video plus the coming episodes of Diamonds Are Forever on this channel. Plus, we'll be putting all the interesting meetings or talks which we have in the ICOG webinars, etc. So please do look up the channel, the ICOG YouTube channel.
My sincere thanks to Namita Thapar and her team at MCure Pharma for the support and help to make this happen. Thank you very much, and do join us for the next episode. Namaskar.